Hi, this is Melissa Wright, and welcome to Bytes on Thursday. And I have a very special guest today, Vennard Wright, who was my classmate in leadership, Greater Washington, class of 2019, raising the bar. And it's just a pleasure. We've had so many interesting conversations over lunch and whatnot. I appreciate you being here today, bringing in our tech and business world together.
Thank you. It's a pleasure, Melissa.
So, I mentioned Leadership Greater Washington, and I was talking with our wonderful Carrie Sinclair, my social media expert, earlier, and I was telling her, and I don't know if you remember this story, because our theme is storytelling and the role of storytelling in careers. And my biggest memory of you is, do you remember when we were coming up with a name for the group and we did this improv exercise and we were all standing like in a big circle, front to back, and we were going around the room and they were giving us like a word and you were supposed to say whatever popped into your brain first?
I do.
And do you remember that? And do you remember what Lynn said?
I don't remember what Lynn said.
So without giving it away, people were saying like up, down, around, in, out, and Lynn blurts out uterus.
I do remember that.
And everyone's like, uterus? And now let me put in context, Lynn is an OBGYN doctor. So it made a little more sense, right? But I was like, uterus, if you take that word apart later on, you to us, and so they were talking about a group name, and I love that kind of stuff, but I'm not always great at it. So I made these things with a uterus, and I said, you to us, that could be our class name. And I put it out there, we could put it on t-shirts, and everyone was like, oh, this is so wrong. And that's when I found out that you design a lot of t-shirts. Mm-hmm. And I remember asking you, and I'm just thinking, from my perspective, I was so excited. I had all these ideas, and you're probably thinking, who is that crazy lady, So if you remember, what was your impression from the other side? I'm just curious.
Well, I did think when she said uterus, I do remember that now. I was like, wow, that's really out there. And I don't want to be associated with a class name called uterus. But I remember at the very, very beginning, that was during our opening retreat and just getting to know everyone. I guess fast forward, the lesson out of that was the impression I had of a lot of people was really inaccurate. So I think just based on human nature, we tend to make assumptions about who people are, but we were completely wrong. But I do remember my first impression of you was that you had cool glasses.
Why, thank you. These glasses, every time I take them off, people go, where are your blue glasses? I'm like, I am stuck with these forever and ever. So.
Absolutely, you are.
But no, you're right. And I like the way you brought that around, that it's like, and you and I over lunch sometimes have talked about books a lot, that proverb, you can't judge a book by its cover.
Right.
And just for people who don't know, Leadership Greater Washington brings together leaders from the private, the public, and the not-for-profit sectors. They're carefully curated classes under 65, mix of men, women, people of all shapes and sizes. And the idea is to educate us about the region's challenges and what we do well.
Right. Absolutely.
Build. So building relationships to make the region better. That's what I meant to say. So I would love you to introduce yourself, Vennard, because to me, you epitomize what the importance of relationships are.
Yeah, so in terms of my professional background, I've served as C-level multiple times. I've been Chief Technology Officer for EDS. They were acquired by HP. At EDS, I was responsible for the law enforcement portfolio, which was Department of Justice, Department of State, and Homeland Security. After that, I was Director of Technology for Hillary Clinton during her Senate reelection and 2008 presidential campaign. And I always have to follow that up with the fact that I was not the one who set up the email server, so I don't have any juicy stories to talk about there. I was also Director of Technology for Rashawn Baker when he ran for county executive. And after that, I became CIO for Prince George's County, Maryland. I was also CIO for WSC Water, which is the water company for Montgomery and Prince George's County, and CIO and VP of Operations for Ironbow Technologies. So now I'm president of my own company, Wave Welcome. And so that is certainly what I was working toward for a long time, working for myself. So that's my professional side. On the personal side, I've been married for 25 years. I have a son who's in the Marines. I have a daughter, Kayla, who graduated from Bowie State. I have another daughter who's in the Navy. I'm stationed at Quantico, and my youngest daughter is running track at University of Maryland. She's a freshman. So 4 children.
Wait, you forgot that you coach the track team still and still run? I've seen you put down bets on running, right?
Absolutely. I put down bets, but lately I've been losing all of those bets. So I think that I'm almost retired, at least racing younger people. I'll still put down bets against people my age.
There you go. There you go. Well, one of the things that's interesting that you also left out of the story is that, you know, Carrie and I were talking beforehand, and I think of you, and tell me if this sounds familiar to you, but as a hero of your story, and you know that hero's journey. Mm-hmm. And, you know, I read your story about imposter syndrome, and women will talk about that a lot, but you don't always hear men talking about that. So I'd love to touch a little bit upon, you know, what are the obstacles that you have faced, imposter syndrome, you know, landing the right thing, and what encouraged you to be a serial entrepreneur?
That's a great question. I'm glad you brought that up. So across all of my senior level roles, I've been, in most cases, the only minority at that level. So as a result of that, there was always the weight of feeling like I had to validate hiring more people that looked like me. So there was that. Then that was compounded by the fact that growing up, I really didn't know any professional Black men. So, you know, and I do look up to my father. I looked up to him then. I still look up to him now, and even more so now. But he worked 35 years in the post office. So he was blue collar. And he was my example in terms of working hard, but I really didn't see anyone who put on a suit every day, and certainly didn't know any CIOs. So it was all uncharted territory for me. So every time I got to a position where I became CIO or some senior level executive, I wanted to make sure that I did an incredible job so that they would hire other people into the same position. So that was a big part of it, but also at the same time, I knew that there were certainly people who had, in some cases, more experience. There were people who might have had Ivy League educations, and here I am in this position, and you know, I just felt like I had to prove that I should be there. So I think it got to the point where I just kept hearing over and over again, "You've had a great career," and I took a step back and I said, "Wow, well, I guess at this point, yeah, I have." So that started the process, along with having a career coach who really pointed out that the accomplishments I've had over my career justified me being in that position. But it certainly has not been an easy journey. And, you know, now with me being an entrepreneur, it's almost starting over again, you know, competing against firms who do have a track record, me trying to make sure that people realize they should take a chance on me in terms of signing up as a client. So but the difference is now I know that everything I'm asking people to take a chance on, it's things I've done before. So my clients now tend to be medium-sized companies, medium-sized organizations. So the projects that I'm doing for my clients now, I've done several times for organizations who are larger. So it's not as bad as it used to be, but it's certainly a weight that I've carried around for most of my career.
So it's an interesting story. So were you the first in your family to graduate from college?
No, I wasn't. I wasn't the first. My mother did graduate from college, but she stayed home and took care of us. So she had her degree, but she really chose to make sure that we were pushing the ball forward. And as a result of that, all of my siblings have done well also.
So you had a mom that went to college, you had a dad who had a career with the post office. So he showed you what hard work was, but you didn't see other people, other Black men and other people of color in roles that you aspired to.
That's right.
What encouraged you to pick IT as your pathway?
So I got married really early. I got married at 22. And I remember when I graduated, so I was already married to my wife when I graduated, and she's a cosmetologist. And she looked at me at the time and said, okay, you have a degree and I don't, but I make twice as much as you. So at the time I was working in finance and contracts administration, not making a lot of money. And I just got into IT so I could make more money than my wife. And, it ended up working out.
A little bit of a competitive streak there, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Nice. And so you decided that you wanted to be at the top of the heap. It wasn't good enough just to go into IT and make more money than your wife. You wanted that C-suite job.
Right.
And when you looked around, there weren't a lot of people that looked like you there. One of the things that I really admire about you, you had invited me to come talk to your group of mentees. So I wanted to hear more about the importance of why mentoring matters in people's lives, and especially in the lives of young Black people that you've chosen to mentor.
Sure. So for me, I remember coming up and hearing about CIOs, but I'd never seen a CIO, Black or white, up close. So I never set out to be CIO, first of all. It's something that I am very competitive, and, I do like to be in charge. So in some ways it might've been inevitable, but it's not that I set out, to really say, okay, I'm going to become CIO. But at the same time, I remember being fascinated by CIOs, and I remember working for EDS at the time, and I was chief technology officer, which is lower than in some organizations a CIO. And I remember seeing the CIO for ATF, who at the time was Rick Holgate, and just being fascinated. I mean, it's like the wizard and the Wizard of Oz. I mean, he's the man behind the curtain, and I'm looking at him and saying, okay, well, that's a CIO. And I remember also the deputy CIO for ATF, who I still talk to, Linda Curitin, who ended up being the CIO for NASA. She's a Black woman who became the CIO for all of NASA. And being close to her and seeing, okay, wow, this is a CIO. So it was fascinating. But fast forward to what I do now, I want to make sure that as many young people as possible can talk to me, get guidance about what it means to be in a position, the different skills you need to have, the different things that you do, so that if they do decide that's the direction they want to go in, they have some guidance. So like I said, for me, it was really uncharted territory where I did a lot of things by trial and error. As a result, there was that imposter syndrome because I wasn't sure I was doing the right things. And certainly, being in certain situations, being young, younger than a lot of the people I was supervising. So there were a lot of different factors, but I just want to make sure that as many young people as possible know that if they do certain things, if they have certain skills, it's not guaranteed that they're going to become CIO, but certainly it increases the likelihood.
So having a mentor and seeing people in those roles, those are two main criteria. And the other thing you mentioned is that even at a very senior role, you had a coach of your own. And so having a mentor, having a coach, having role models, and the other thing that I think, and you mentioned some of those people that inspired you, it's inspiration, but sponsorship.
Absolutely.
Did you have sponsors, or have you sponsored people? And can you explain what the difference is between mentorship and sponsorship?
Absolutely. So I've certainly had sponsors, and, I say thank you over and over again to the people who did sponsor me. So the people, the first one who I think really gave me a shot was Rob Holder when I was at EDS. So when I was hired into EDS, I was hired as a senior systems engineer. I was doing a lot of hands-on development, which is where I really got my start in IT. But he came up to me and said, would you be interested in being CTO? I didn't know a lot about the role, but I knew it was higher than what I was doing. I said, absolutely. So he took a shot on me, gave me the first opportunity to be C-level. And after that, I've had several other sponsors, Rashawn Baker being another one. When he became county executive for Prince George's County, he said, hey, Vennard, I want you to come in and I want you to be CIO. So he gave me a shot, and I've had those along the way. In terms of mentors, I mean, these were people, there are multiple people who have served as mentors, and those were people that I looked up to, people who were successful. They had certain characteristics that I wanted to emulate. So one of them was Ron Owens. He used to be one of the partners in an advertising firm called Laughlin, Marinaccio and Owens. And He was, I think, one of the first Black millionaires I really had the chance to rub shoulders with. And I remember talking to him, and he really emphasized the importance of working hard and playing hard. There was another gentleman, Cliff Barnes, who was a partner in the law firm Epstein Becker Green. And Cliff also emphasized the importance of working hard and playing hard. So there were certain things that I took from them as mentors, because they were very successful Black men who made a lot of money, but they also made sure that when the time came for them to recharge, they did so. So those were definitely things that I picked up from them. But the mentors, like I said, these were people that had certain characteristics that I wanted to emulate. The sponsors were certain people that made sure that my career path was on the right trajectory.
And sometimes people volunteer to be in those roles, and sometimes you have to ask people. And I think that's really important. So what was the nexus of your mentorship group? And I think you've mentored over 20 some odd young people, right?
Yeah, so for the group that I mentor now, these are all people that formerly served as interns or apprentices, either at Prince George's County or WSSC. And these are all young people that I identified that I think were high potential. So I told them at the time, hey, you're going to be stuck with me for life, because I wanted to make sure that as they started their careers, I was giving them certain pointers to make sure that they were pushing in the right direction. And it's not just about doing the right things to succeed, but also making sure that you're taking care of yourself. So a big part of what I emphasize with them is just making sure that they have self-awareness. And we even have a session tonight. So tonight at 5:30, we're talking about finite versus an infinite mindset. Just how you limit yourself in terms of your thinking. So those are the kinds of things we talk about on a monthly basis.
I love it. That's wonderful. So the session I came to, you asked me to come in and help with branding, and it was, how do we tell our story, or how do we share our stories in powerful ways during interviews?
That's right.
You, okay? They buy you, they choose to work with Vennard Wright. What's your pitch to them now that you have your own business and you're doing your own thing? Why work with you?
Well, the reason you work with me is because I have successfully multiple times worked with very large organizations to completely transform them by leveraging technology. So what I bring to anyone is a combination of finance, contracts, administration, technology, HR. I understand all of those things and what the nexus is between each one of them. So I don't lead with technology. I really lead with understanding the business and how technology can help to achieve your strategic objectives. So that's the way that I approach my clients. I want to make sure that I understand the business, understand what it is they're trying to accomplish, and then figuring out whether it's technology, business process reengineering, or retraining people to be able to achieve whatever objectives they've laid out.
So you're putting on your consulting hat and you're listening to what their needs are and their issues are. And as a business person, you're figuring out what the possible solutions are by leveraging technology.
That's right. That's right. And I think far too often, technologists lead with some cool emerging technology they've seen without really understanding whether it's best for the client. And that's certainly not something I do, because a lot of times you'll work with clients who say, okay, here's a technology I want to put in place. And I'll listen to them, and that technology solution really is not going to achieve what it is that they've laid out. So it really is a matter of making sure you understand where they're going to be and whether or not it's a technology fix or just changing the way that they operate. Because sometimes the technology they already own will work just fine, and they don't need to spend the extra money putting in a new technology that's going to be disruptive.
So the biggest differential of why someone would work with you versus somebody else, it doesn't really matter that you're new, because you're not. You've gained experience from all these amazing, political campaigns, to WSSC, to Iron Bow. They're huge operations. Right.
And I've been successful, like I said, at each one of them. And what I can do is for everything, and, at some point, and this is what I found in technology, you've seen most different situations. So what I can do is give a few different ways of tackling a problem and say, okay, here are the different options. Here's where you are. here's my recommendation, here are the pros and cons. So I can lay out an entire story, going back to what you said about storytelling. Here's the outcome if you go this way, and here's the outcome if you go in this direction. So it's almost a a good, better, best situation where you're laying out, okay, here is going to be the benefit if you go in this direction. Here is going to be the benefit if you go in that direction. And just really telling a story for each of the different approaches and helping the client get to where it is they want to be by laying out what the cost benefit is for each one of those different approaches.
I mean, that translation, because often people will say, here's the solution, and how much is your budget? I'll fit this in. But that translation to what the benefit is for the organization or the person, I think is crucial.
Yeah. And I mean, I'm certainly, I've seen that happen so often, and it really is frustrating where a person says, okay, here's what you need to do. And I've been as CIO in that situation multiple times where you get a very large organization. The organizations will go unnamed, just the very large technology vendors who have some new technology they're trying to push, and you inherently know that it's not the best solution for you, and they'll push it anyway.
Yeah.
And sometimes I've been in the situation where I say, well, you know what, no, that's wrong, and I'm vetoed. And we find out later that, yeah, it was the wrong solution for us. So it really is a frustrating situation to be in. So I want to make sure that, number one, you understand the organization, you understand the stakeholders, you understand the impact, but you also understand what's going to be different once it's put in place, both good and bad.
So if we continue along the hero's journey, what's the common threads for you as you overcome these obstacles? What are the tools in your toolbox that you have?
Well, I mean, I think it really is about resilience. And that's part of what I'm talking about later with the finite and infinite mindset. So you lay out your project schedule, you lay out where you think you're going to end up, but almost inevitably you end up somewhere else. So for me, I expect change. I expect things to go off track. I expect for things to deviate slightly, and you have to be prepared for those. So I do consider myself to be resilient, flexible. I can adapt to different situations. And a lot of that is because I've been in technology so long, and I've seen how these very large implementations and engagements go. So that is a good position to be in. Just expect the unexpected and be prepared for it. So if you're adaptable, if you try not to get as flustered when things don't go according to plan, it works in your favor. So that's certainly an area where I consider myself to be set a little bit apart from others who might be in the same situation. And I've certainly, it's been noted in the past that when the pressure is up, I tend to stay calm. I mean, it's, I try to make sure that I'm even, because especially as a leader, people are watching you. They're taking their cues from you. So if you're flustered, if you're on edge, your team tends to be as well.
I definitely hear that in you. So one of the things I've always noticed about you is how genuine you are and that you truly care. So, you're competitive. You like, at the beginning you said you wanted to make more money than your wife. I know that's friendly, but how do you keep that balance of integrity and being genuine in the workplace and as we do business, especially as you're advising young people? How do you stay the hero?
Well, I mean, here's the way that I look at all of these positions, even my company included. These are positions, you put them on like clothes. It's not who you are. So even when I was CIO, people were more in awe of the position than I was. I just happened to be CIO, but it was, at the end of the day, it was a job. It was a job. That can be gone tomorrow, but you're stuck with the person that you are. So I put a lot of emphasis on making sure that I'm a better person. I'm making sure that the people who are closest to me, my family, my friends, think highly of me. I put a lot of emphasis on that. And I just figure the rest is going to work out. And if it doesn't, I can always go move to Bahamas and sell lemonade on the beach, and I'll be perfectly fine. But like I said, the positions really are not that important. Of course, we want to make a lot of money to take care of our families, but at the end of the day, what's most important is who you are fundamentally as a person.
I think that's what businesses buy. And I think that's why you're successful, because everywhere you've gone on your journey, you've met people. And like, as you were talking about them, you were telling stories about each of them because they're part of you, they're inside of you. And I am sure you're nurturing those networks and staying in touch with people.
That's right.
I mean,
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I really do. Even with the teams that I've been blessed to lead, I want to make sure that I get to know them. I want to know why they're working. I want to know about their families. I want to know what their goals are, because we're all doing it for some reason. So if your goal is to become CIO, my job is to help you get there. So I can tell you at WSSC, I certainly told my direct reports, I want to make sure that one of you is CIO when I move on.
Yes.
And that's the way that I approach every position. So I want to make sure that, number one, work with people who are very motivated. But as I identify what their motivations are, I help them to get to that point. And the same thing with vendors or partners that I work with. I just want to get to know them as people, because I also feel like if you know a person at a basic level, what makes them tick, what motivates them, you're a lot less likely to do things that undermine them or push your relationship in the wrong direction. So we might not end up doing business together, but best case scenario, I earn a new friend.
So that character development and the story development matter to you, but the where it's going and what's going to happen, you're a facilitator. You're trying to enable people to accomplish their dreams or to obtain the Holy Grail or whatever it is that they're setting out to do. But by listening and caring, really caring about people as human beings, right?
Yeah, and so I'm also, here's the way that I approach it, Melissa. At really a macro level, I'm very into astronomy. So I have telescopes at my house. I'm incredibly fascinated with outer space. But the reason that's important is because when you look at where we are in the grand scheme of things, we are just a speck of dust in this. We don't know how large the universe is. So I know you've heard people try to quantify it, but why are we fighting about little things? Why are we backstabbing? Why are we finding different ways to differentiate ourselves? So the way I look at it is we're all stuck on this speck of dust together, and our jobs should be to make life as pleasant as we can for all of the other people who are stuck here with us. And that really is the way I approach it. I'm not going to differentiate based on the fact that, okay, you're a Muslim, I'm a Christian, you're Mexican, I'm American, you're Black, I'm white. Those are the pettiest things. What I want to do is find new relationships and find ways that we can make life better for each other. And that's certainly the way that I operate. And if I find myself deviating from that any bit, I will take time and make it a point to correct it. And if not, my wife, who also thinks the same way, will certainly point it out to me.
I was wondering who was your check and balance system.
Oh, absolutely she is.
Your compass, your whatever you want to call it.
Oh, absolutely she is. Absolutely she is. I mean, she's definitely, it took me a long time to realize that she's probably the most incredible person I've ever encountered. I mean, she really is. She thinks different. But certainly if I'm off track, she's quick to remind me, whether it's me not living up to my fullest potential, me being judgmental, whatever it is, she'll not hesitate to point it out to me. And she's right 99% of the time.
Having a partner in your life allows you to go out and be braver in the world because you know that somebody has your back, and you're both very lucky.
Yeah, and I mean, I think the most beautiful thing about it is I have been fortunate. I've had a career where I've made a lot of money, and I'm still seeing a good amount of success. But if it were to all go away, I still have her. So I mean, like I said, we could still, as long as she's okay with it, we could go and live in Bahamas, and I'm serious, and just open up a lemonade stand. And as long as we have enough, I'm okay. I mean, and that really is the way that we operate. And as a matter of fact, when I decided to work for myself, she said, I'm okay with it, but just let me know if it's not working so we can just sell the house. She didn't want to lose everything, but she's perfectly fine with me taking that chance. As long as we have each other, we're okay. Our kids are grown at this point, well, chronologically grown at this point.
They're always your kids. They'll always be there. You know that.
Yeah. But like I said, it really is about the relationships you have. It's not about how many things you accumulate. So I'm certainly at that point. I mean, I am a competitive person. I'm going to continue to push forward, but if it doesn't work out, I'm okay.
So if we bring it full circle, where does the story, in entrepreneur terms, it would be an exit plan, but where do you see the story going for you?
Yeah. So for me, I see myself working. I've given myself an artificial number. Somewhere between 57 and 60 is going to be I'll never completely exit. I'm always going to do something to stay busy, but I'm going to take my foot off the gas for sure, somewhere between 57 and 60. So whatever I've accumulated at that point is what I'm going to have to live with for the rest of my life. It's as long as I can be comfortable, as long as I can take care of those people around me. And, a big part of what I'm doing now is because we did have kids. We've had kids our entire marriage. So I wasn't able to save as much as I could have. So I'm playing catch up. So that's a big part of the reason I'm working for myself too, because you can do it a lot faster once you get contracts and you're able to put a lot more aside. So that's part of my motivation right now. But at the end of the day, if I'm not able to hit that magic number, everyone has a different number that they're looking to make sure is set aside. I'm still going to be done at 60.
I like it. I like the idea of helping others, building those relationships, bringing them along with you, finding that balance, finding that solid partner that allows you to have the courage to go out and do things. And when you face those obstacles, you overcome them and you grow from them. You expect them, is what I've heard you say. You expect them and you have a plan B and a plan C, or make it up as you go, right?
That's right. Yeah. So today I was playing golf. It was me and one other guy. So it was only two people in a foursome. So each one of us were taking two shots. But what I found out halfway through the round is that he had built his company up to 65 million and sold it to CACI. And one of the things that was really interesting to me is he was an older Black gentleman who had done this. So just picking his brain and, certainly, those are the kinds of things I look for. Just how did you get to where you are? And I was really happy to hear the fact that he's also been married to his wife for 25 years. So that was huge, that he didn't forsake his personal relationships to get to that point. So those are the kinds of role models that I'm looking for. Like I said, it really is about balance. I want to work hard, but I also want to make sure that at the end of the day, I have people to enjoy it with.
I love it. Well, one day maybe you're going to write it down so we all can read that story, right?
Absolutely. Well, see, so my story can be sensational. I've been wrestling with that because I could tell some really interesting things, but I don't want to offend anyone.
Oh, nothing. No last story for us to go. Come on, one little story. Just one.
Let's see.
Something about that influenced who you are, your brand or your career, or something that was a real faux pas in the workplace that you would recommend against doing, or something.
Oh, wow. Well, so one thing that most people don't know about me, and where I met my wife, and this tends to come up, a lot of times during happy hour, if I'm out with another couple, they say, so how did you meet your wife? And I met my wife. So I used to be a model for Wilson Leather and Structure, and she came to one of the shows, and, I was in great shape at the time. I was still playing football, and I saw her looking at me, and, it was really, we were attracted to each other right away. But there was another guy who was talking to her, and he fumbled the proverbial football, and, I ended up getting her phone number, but, I thought that was just going to be it. And fast forward, we got married 6 months later. We got married after 6 months.
6 months.
And we're married. Wow. We're still married 25 years later. So I wouldn't recommend getting married after 6 months at 22, but it worked out for me.
That's awesome. I love that. Thank you,
Absolutely.
Vennard.
Thank
Thank you so
you.
much. It was
Thank
great
you.
sharing with you.
Likewise.